Welcome to Reverb's Quarantine Kitchen. Happy Blurs Day. Every day seems to be blurring together. This is where we have musicians, celebrities, and other of our favorite folks come in and cook their favorite sustainable recipes from their kitchens live to your homes. I'm Adam Gardner from the band Guster. I also am co-founder of the nonprofit environmental group REVERB. REVERB normally would be on tour right now with a bunch of bands like Billie Eilish and Dave Matthews Band and the Lumineers and Tame Impala and a bunch of others. And what we normally do on those tours is we green up the tours, and we also engage all their fans to take action at the concerts for people on the planet. But since there aren't any live concerts going on right now during these quarantine times, we thought we could bring a little bit of reverb right to you. So here's how this works. We're about to bring on our guest chef. Every episode is a new friend of ours that is cooking from their home. And I try to distract them while they're cooking their recipes that are incredible. I've tried all of them so far that we've done. And we'll talk about food and music and the environment and anything else that pops up as we're chatting. And you at home, as you're watching this live, please feel free to chat and ask questions in the comments and any sort of other comments you want us to see, and we'll try to react and respond to them as we go along. There'll also be some moments of opportunity if you're able to donate to REVERB. We're an environmental nonprofit, and we'd appreciate it if you could help support our efforts during this time. Also, our guest chef has selected a special charity near and dear to them that will also be a beneficiary tonight. So stay tuned for more on that. I think the donate link is reverb.org/papa, which gives away our guest, although I imagine there's probably some information around me right now anyway, so it's not a surprise. I am so thrilled to have for our fourth episode, our first non-musical chef guest is a comedian. He's been a comedian for over 20 years. I got his little bio right here. He's the head writer and performer on the legendary radio show Live From Here, formerly known as Prairie Home Companion. That's how I got to know Tom. He's a regular on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and Conan. He has a slew of stand-up specials on Netflix that I adore. That's how I really got to know him. And he even stars in movies. Movies! He's a movie star. He starred opposite Robert De Niro, Matt Damon, and Paul Giamatti. That's unbelievable. He has a weekly podcast that I think he just came from so he could be with us now, and a brand new book out right now. So this man never stops. It's ridiculous. I am so thrilled to welcome comedian, bread enthusiast, Renaissance man, and just a good person, Mr. Tom Papa. Tom, are you there? Can you come in? How you doing, Tom?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for that extremely creepy entrance. Yeah, let's do it again. At the end of our time together, will you please? That's how we end the show too. You just
right, exactly. Go back into my hole. That's how it feels now, doesn't it? It's like you just feel like you're doing your own little portal. Okay, you went to the food store. Now I'm going back in.
I love it. Yeah, that is actually how it feels. Hopefully it's a nice, cozy, safe burrow and not just a weird escape room.
Right, exactly. I feel like we're kind of, like in 2001 Space Odyssey, or in Aliens, it's like they were just on that ship. And it was like, that's how I feel like we're living now.
Totally, yeah, just floating.
I'm going to the workout room now, and someone gets on the treadmill, and everybody meets for meals, and then goes back to their sleep pods, and then goes back to, I really feel like we're all space traveling.
It's definitely, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So Tom, you and I met, I guess it was June when Guster played Live From Here, where you're the head writer and perform your funny bits there. I had known you as a comic before that, and I hadn't met you before. We met that night. We all went out for a nice meal. We bonded over food. Here we are bonding again over food.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know about you is what a bread aficionado and nerd you are about bread. You are passionate about bread. How'd that happen?
I am. I don't know. It was kind of strange. I always liked cooking, but I was never really into baking all that much. And I was working on the show called Red Oaks on Amazon.
Okay.
A friend of mine was created the show and asked if I would write on it. And it was a very just small, like just several writers on the show. And my friend Max Werner was on there. And during one of the breaks, he started teaching me about, or not even teaching me, he was just talking about making sourdough bread. And I had no idea what a sourdough starter was. He just explained like that you put flour and water in a bowl, and yeast from the atmosphere goes in and eats it and becomes active. Right. And that becomes like this little microcosm, this little living thing, the sourdough starter. And I told my family about it at dinner, and just because it sounded like science fiction. I wasn't thinking of even making it at that point. And then my daughter for Christmas got a sourdough starter started for me. She was probably like 14 at the time. And she was hiding it in different places in the kitchen, and on her own got a sourdough starter going. And, you know, as an actor, I had to pretend that I was excited about this gift of goo.
Ooh, thank you.
Thanks, honey. That's so cute. But it ended up being one of the greatest gifts of all time, because from that, I followed my buddy Max's recipe and started to bake bread with it. And that just opened this whole world up, because I didn't realize that real bread is only flour, water, salt, and yeast. It's just 4 ingredients. That's what real bread is. And that all this bread that I had been eating my whole life wasn't even really bread. Like the FDA had to change their definition of what bread was.
Really?
To accommodate the mass manufacturing of these bread-like products. But you shouldn't have 32 ingredients in bread. It should be flour, water, salt, and yeast. And it just made all this sense to me that all these people were getting sick, and it just didn't make sense to me that people ate bread for thousands of years, and then when we show up, it's a problem.
Right, right. Exactly.
It didn't make any sense to me. And then I started just getting closer to the product. You know, I started, I fits and starts and started to really read about it and get better at it. And, the smell of fresh bread in your house, it can't be beat. And then to taste it was just like, all right, this is too good. It's just so amazing. And I just kept going deeper and deeper with it and kept getting better at it. And I just realized we're not getting heavier. We're not having stomach problems.
Right.
This is because we're eating something good. We're eating something.
It's a whole food. Like you're doing it with real ingredients. You're not.
Right. Exactly. And then just from there, I just started really getting into it. And then when I would tour around, I would go to different bakeries when I was on the road and go in and just kind of like see what kind of flour they were using, talk to the bakers. I just really was interested and kept learning more and more about it. And this was at a time when these kind of artisanal bakeries were opening up all over the place.
Right.
We had the Tartine up in San Francisco and Sullivan Bakery in New York. And so it was in the culture. It was just starting to emerge.
It's so interesting how like these times now everyone's baking. You can't find flour. It's hard to find it.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this a long time. Like it's funny. I just did a little research on you before you came on this, and I found all these videos that you made way before, actually just in time for the quarantine. You're getting baked with Tom Papa, like explain exactly step by step how to do this, which leads me to believe that you knew something that the rest of us didn't.
I know. I'm glad you bring that up, because I feel like, when you were a kid and you were into a band and they were way before anyone else was.
Right. Yeah.
And then like you were cool, and then they become popular and everyone likes them. And all of a sudden you're not even that cool anymore. They took your cool away because everyone's into it. That's how I feel with bread. Everyone's like, oh, this is bread. And they're all discovering. I'm like, no, I was 5 years ago.
Right.
I was doing this.
Well, you definitely have an internet trail to prove it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned being on the road, and that's I think where obviously I played in Guster and been touring for almost 30 years, and you've been touring for probably almost 20 or more. What I know for me and for our band, like one of our favorite parts of touring is eating and knowing we're headed to this region that has this specialty. We're heading to this town that has this restaurant.
Yeah.
like you mentioned a couple like Tartine in San Francisco. Actually, we were able to squeeze that one in right before our tour got canceled.
Right. You guys were in Napa right after I was.
That's right. You left us a little note in the dressing room. I remember.
Yeah.
That's lovely. But that's the sort of thing. Like, so when we're in that part of town, it's like, ooh, we know somebody at the Francis Ford Coppola estate. We can go tour the winery. Like, to me, I think for all of us in our band, and I imagine this is true for you too, that like at least half the joy of touring comes from eating your way around the country.
I'm so glad you say that, because I literally was talking to Alonzo Bowden, who's another great comedian, yesterday about it. And I said, I don't think, and we were talking about 90% of the time you're on the road, you're thinking about the meal, where you're going to eat after the show. Yeah. And I think part of it kind of soothes you. It takes the stress out of the performance, and it gives you something else to think about. But we just love it and love eating. And I said to him, I doubt rock bands are really talking about this. I don't think they're like thinking about like where they're going to eat after.
Oh, totally. That's all. While we're performing, we're thinking about it. I've actually leaned over to Ryan at times, being like, dude, I cannot wait for wherever we're going after, insert favorite restaurant here.
Yeah. Oh, how great was that? How great was that meal though? We were in Virginia or Maryland.
Maryland, right? Because there's Maryland crabs.
Oh, one of those where the picnic tables,
they
put out the paper and they just bring those buckets of crabs and smacking them with mallets. That was one of the best meals of the year.
Didn't you eat there the night before too?
I did it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out there.
I was so filled with sodium after
all the Old Bay spices, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. 2 nights in a row. My hands are so cut up.
Yeah. Well, let's start the recipe. Let's start making some bread, because that's what we are ultimately here for, is to give some folks some useful tips on how to do this. I will say, like, this seems to be, so far, this is our 4th episode.
Yeah.
This seems to be the most expert level recipe we've done to date. And I imagine maybe going forward, this might be the most. I started following your recipe because you sent it over a couple of days ago and realized, oh, this is a process if you're going to start from just flour and water. But I'd love for you to start walking us through it. I'm committed. I've done every recipe so far. I hope folks who are interested, there's no time like now to try something like this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really feel like that's kind of the key with cooking and baking, is you don't have to be able to make everything, but find something that you really like and just get really good at it. Like just be a specialist in a couple like killer dishes and maybe a couple baked things, and just get really good at it. And that's kind of what happened with the bread more than anything. What I'm going to show you today is the end product, which is a toast that I really like. But I figured we would kind of walk you through some parts of the bread that we can. I mean, this is really a long process. And it seems daunting in the beginning because there's a lot of prep, there's a lot of lead. But that's all in the beginning. Once you get into the routine of doing it, the time of everything shrinks and it becomes a lot more manageable. In the beginning, to make a sourdough starter is about a week. And then to get it ready for dough is like another couple of days. And then to actually, from the time you put this dough together, that you're talking about another 2 days. So it seems kind of like a long, daunting thing. And but it's not. It really does kind of shrink. But there are certain moments that I want to share with you that people always get confused about when they kind of venture out. So while we don't have a week and a half to do everything, I'll kind of point out the parts that people seem to get hung up on. The first thing is, and you get this ready for the next time that we have some event that makes everybody run and steal all the toilet paper from the stores and the flour and the yeast. I had no idea that the sourdough starter was going to be such a commodity. Like when everyone was freaking out about getting yeast and they couldn't bake, and you wanted to bake just for comfort and because there was no bread, I had no idea, like the stuff I just had in my jar in my refrigerator was like this godsend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to start a sourdough starter, you have to just, like I said, my daughter was 14 when she did it. You can do this. You take a bowl and you take equal amounts of flour and water and put it in the bowl. It's very helpful to have a scale. To have a digital scale is really, it's pretty important because flour compacts. So the weight of it, when a lot of recipes from different books and whatever will call for a cup of flour and a cup of this. It's better to be accurate with it, especially in the stage of doing a starter. Again, you can modify all of this stuff, and if you don't have one, just give it a shot with a cup. You'll get away with it.
We posted your recipe that you sent us, and we did some conversions for those who didn't have a scale. So there's a link on this Facebook post right now, and we'll have it on our blog as well.
All right, great. Yeah, I started without a scale, and then I got a scale as I moved along and was getting a little more specific about stuff. So just put that in a bowl. Put flour and water in a bowl, and just wait for what's around you to come in and eat it. And you'll know because it starts to bubble. And they think that that's how like the first bread in Egypt was made. The first time that they, before they had flour and they were making these flat kind of breads, kind of like crackers. And then once it started to get active, all of a sudden they were onto something, and that was going to be the thing that would give rise, and all of a sudden bread was born. You're doing the same thing. You're just putting flour and water in a bowl. You're letting it sit out. You're letting it get active. And once it starts to get active, it's like fishing. You're like trapping it. And this is the big part where people they can get freaked out. They don't know what to look for, and it'll die. My mother, who, had taught me everything about cooking, can't get a sourdough starter going. She just can't do it. She gets impatient. One of the big mistakes is when you get the activity, you think, oh my God, there's yeast in there. Let me feed it. And they just start throwing more flour and more water. And that's okay, equal parts flour and water, but you're going to end up suffocating it. Always think lightness. Think lightness. You've got some activity in your bowl. Scoop everything out but a tablespoon. All of it out. You only need, these are microcosms. These are very small. Just take everything out with a tablespoon and then feed it 50 grams of water and 50 grams of flour. And then let it sit again. And it starts to build up. The colony starts to multiply. It becomes more and more active. It becomes more and more bubbly. Again, take it all out. And, this is like half a day. Once it starts going, it's about a half a day. Scoop it out, feed it again, let it get active. Don't just keep in your mind lightness, light and airy, because that's ultimately what you want to get to. So once it's active and you got something, this is what it looks like. This was a tablespoon that I took out of the refrigerator in my mason jar where I keep my starter. It was 1 tablespoon, and then flour and water for a day and a half, and it starts to look like this.
Nice. Yeah. So we started. So this is my daughter. She's 11. She did a starter too.
Nice.
I've got one. Speaking of sustainability, I've got one of these silicone lids. I'm in love with these. I just got them a couple days ago.
Nice. Yeah.
But this is we started yesterday morning. I don't know. It looks like it's bubbling. We put a little piece of tape to see if it's rising and falling.
Yeah.
So it seems like if you could actually it doesn't seem like it's necessarily a lot of active work. You just have to kind of plan and have patience as this thing. You check in on it. It's almost like watering a plant right now. It seems. Like.
Yeah, yeah, it is. What was the lid? What was it?
Oh, these are awesome. It's made out of silicone, so you can wash them. I'm not gonna throw this upside down because I don't want to mess with the starter, but it fits over any dish. This dish just happens to be a random dish. Because I always on my Tupperware, I always am losing the lids. I don't know where they are. You can use any bowl anyway, and it's nice. It's instead of Saran wrap, you don't waste plastic. So
that's so perfect. Can that go in the microwave?
Yeah, it can.
Wow.
And the dishwasher, the whole deal.
That's great. So when it starts getting bubbly and you've gone through you've got your starter going and you think it's okay, now you want to move on to baking bread. One test to see if your sourdough starter is ready to bake bread. Again, we're thinking lightness, and you'll see it starts to bubble. It starts to get the bubbles get pretty big. One test is just to pick it up and drop it onto the onto the surface. And if it starts to settle, you're getting a little past peak. Like it's all big and bubbly. If you tap it, it kind of like settles on itself. That means that it's getting a little past peak. But a good way to see if your starter is really ready is to do the float test. It's called the float test. And you just take some water and you take a little bit of your sourdough starter and put it into the water. Very sticky. The stuff was probably glue at one point. And put it in.
Are you doing your own soundtrack right now? You're doing your own
Yeah. So some of it is floating and some of it is not.
Okay, so is that...
And just because I know when this was fed, I can make bread with this. It's not complete. It's not right at peak. It's a little past, but it's good enough where you could bake bread with it. Again,
aren't we all a little past peak?
What's that?
Aren't we all a little past peak?
Yeah, some of us.
Oh, at least that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, that's how I feel. For a while, I was even saying that the float test is silly. Like, I get an idea of when I can do it, and it bakes bread, and it's pretty good. But then during the quarantine, I started to get some breads I wasn't really happy with. All of a sudden, I've been baking bread for a long time.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't happening. And I went back to this just to get a real indicator of how light it was. And it was accurate. It's a very accurate guide.
All right. So now you've been converted to the float test. Because, I've seen your video where you're like, you don't need that.
I know. I like cutting corners. That's why I can bake bread, because you have some freedom to cut corners. But if you can see, there is a little one. See how it's kind of floating? You can see. Yeah. So we're good to go. That's all right.
And Tom, speaking of cutting corners, I also noticed in one of your videos, I've been fully internet stalking you, by the way, for the past week. You also said that, and I don't know if this is still true in quarantine, but you can go to a bakery and ask them for starter, and they'll give it to you.
Yeah, a lot of very cool bakeries will do that. In LA, where I am, there were some of the best bakeries were like putting little kits out that you could just drive by and through takeout, just pick up a little thing of starter in a bag and go home, and also a little flour, and go off and make it yourself.
Huge. Saves you a couple days right there off the bat.
Oh yeah. No, if somebody gives you some that kind, if someone gives you one that's active, you're going to save a lot of time. It's proven. It's been around, and when I pull this one out, it's just like it's ready to go. Sometimes I feel like I can feed it once and be ready to make it, but usually it really needs 2 times. But yeah, bakeries. Look, I did this show for the Food Network where I ran around because they heard when I was on tour that I was visiting bakeries, and they said that might be a cool show if I go and visit these bakeries and stuff. And it really occurred to me when I was out there. I loved it. I loved doing it. I loved meeting all these people because
you win life. You won life, Tom. You got the dream gig.
Yeah, it was great. And you quickly realize these people are just the nicest people in the world. It's very rare that an a-hole decides they're going to open a shop and make cookies for the community. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not on brand.
No, they're pretty good people. So they're very generous, and I would like just hang around and start asking questions about flour and all the rest of it. And they're very generous and very giving.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, I've already put out the amount of flour, and this is flour that comes from Utah, and it's all organic. I'm gonna swing you around so you can see what happens when you bake a lot of bread. That's my corner over there. That's where all the bread stuff happens, and that's my flour down there. Those are 50-pound bags, and then I throw them in these giant buckets. But again, when quarantine hit,
you were ready.
Everybody was freaking out about where to get flour, and I just went down into the basement and carried up a 50-pound bag and put it on the thing, and I was good to go. But this is a great place called Central Milling, and there's these great places that make organic flour all around the country. And there's been a real movement to grow the wheat in regions as it was originally grown. That's and cool. There's some great places in California like that, in the Midwest. And I got turned on by this great baker, Kate's Bread up in Ojai, and that's what she used. So I started ordering from them. It costs more to ship it than it does to buy it, but it's well worth it, and it's all organic. So that's what I'm using here. So when you start bread, it's 1,000 grams on your scale, 1,000 grams of flour, and then it's called the baker's ratio. You go off 1,000, and you can get the ratio of how much water and stuff you need in relation to that. So if I want to get 75% hydration, which means 75% water, that means 750 grams of water. You follow that?
Yep. And we have that in the recipe too.
Right. Okay. Some trouble setting my thing. There's a stage I'll talk about in a minute. With my scale. Bum, 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 bum.
And if you don't have a scale, you can measure it, but this is chemistry. You can't really mess with it. You want to be pretty precise, right?
Yeah, you do. You do. I mean, there's the measurement. The biggest thing that screws up bread baking is impatience. And if you cut corners at any point and try and rush it, and you'll see these different stages, that kills it. The other thing is being inaccurate. It's not like making a cake. You can, there's a little wiggle room. It's not as specific, but you want to be pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So you break out the scale, and then so I want 750 grams of water, and that is it. I don't know. It's funny when you do something long enough, you know, I know pretty accurately. Yeah, exactly. You just get this you get this kind of sense of what it is to make something and how to measure it.
Right.
I like to mix everything by hand. I think there's something about it that's I don't know, natural. It gives you a feel for it. So you have 1,000 grams of flour in there, and then I'm mixing up 700.
I thought you were going to break out a whisk. You mean literally with your hands?
No, with your hands. Stick your big in there. Yeah.
Okay.
If you were to take a whisk and do it, it's not going to really incorporate it. You know, you want to get in there. You want to break everything down. You want to get as much. You want the flour to really interact with the water as much as possible.
All right.
And there's a stage after you mix it called autolyse. And that's where you leave it and just let it soak up the water for even longer. Some people do an hour or more. I usually just do 20 minutes to a half an hour.
Okay.
Of just, you mix it to this point, and then you let it sit and really let it soak up.
That looks fun and messy.
It is fun. It's sticky stuff. My whole thing, I'm kind of a neat freak. I like things neat. I like my kitchen neat. I like everything neat. But when it comes to the bread and the flour, I'm like a maniac. And my wife is constantly annoyed that she's having to scrape up little pieces of flour off everything. All right, let me just do that. So we're going to skip the autolyse part of it.
All right.
Just because.
I wonder if I could break in and talk, if we could talk a little bit about, I know you have a new book. I would love to talk about it.
Yeah.
Is now a good time, or do you want to do that at a different stage?
What's that?
Is now a good time to chat about your book?
I don't know. I mean,
are you tired of it? Are you on a virtual book tour right now?
It seems so salesy to be talking about a book when we're trying to make something. I don't know. Do you want to talk about it? Is it something that you think people will like? Yeah, I love talking about my book. It just came out.
That's awesome. So this is not your first time writing a book, though. You've written other books?
Second book.
All right.
Yeah.
So I've seen. So the name of the book is "You're Doing Great and Other Reasons to Stay Alive."
Yes.
Which I love, and I saw you have a Netflix special with the same title, or "You're Doing Great
Without the staying alive part.
Without the staying alive part.
Yeah.
I saw that. That's actually why I reached out to you and why we're doing this now. Is I saw that I was seeking something funny, and I've always loved your comedy, and I just particularly loved that one. It's interesting how it almost took on a different meaning in this quarantine context, and I found it very funny and very comforting. I'm curious, is the book and the special, are they companions? Are they?
No, there's pieces of the act, the stand-up act, that I use as launching off points in the book. But the book is much deeper and goes a lot further and has a lot more essays in it that were never in the special. Maybe, I don't know, 10% of what you saw in that would end up in here, or the book is like 10% from stand-up. But it really goes a lot further and a lot deeper. And it's, similar to the special, though, the attitude and the theme are all exactly the same. And I don't, a lot of comedy is very cynical and is a very negative, which is hilarious. It's very funny. It's fun to mess with stuff. But I don't live that way. And when I was touring around, this was before all of this stuff went down, people just had this overwhelming anxiety that they weren't doing enough and that everyone felt behind. Like we created these expectations of life that were unattainable. And when I was going around and telling people from the stage that you're doing great, I meant take a deep breath, look around. We're at a comedy show. You are doing great. Despite what everything else in the culture is telling you, you're doing great. And people were coming up to me after the show at meet and greets and stuff, thanking me, sincerely thanking me, because they hadn't heard that before. And as an adult and somebody working with a family and doing this, you don't get these accolades. And people were really comforted with the message of you are doing great. And so I just leaned into it and kept going. And then it inspired the book. And then, when I wrote the book, I had to go out and do the audio for it and, do it. So I sit in a booth, you sit in this booth, and this was after quarantine. I had to go sit in a booth at a secret location and read the book. And I was wondering, the world's different. We're looking at things a little differently at this moment. How's the book going to hold up? And what will be, there were some glaring things, like I talked about a coughing epidemic as a joke because everyone coughs on airplanes.
Right.
I talked about a couple different things that really stuck. I talk a lot about cruise ships, how they're disgusting.
So you did know. Right. You did know. You knew ahead of everybody.
Oh, I knew for sure. But the theme of it really, it doesn't change. It doesn't matter if there's a pandemic. It doesn't matter if there's a depression. It doesn't matter if there's a 9/11. It doesn't matter if there's a Vietnam War. It doesn't matter if you are killing it with your job or if you're up against it. Your perspective on what life is should not change. You should always be grateful that we're here, having a good time, make the people around you happy. And despite all the madness that's going on, you're doing great. You're going to be stressed at times. You're going to be scared at times. But take a deep breath and realize, okay, but I'm here and I'm making dinner and I'm sitting with my loved ones. Yeah, we are kind of doing great. And then you forge through and do all the rest of it. And so the theme of the book kind of became actually a little more comforting in going through it. So, yeah.
I can't wait to read it. I'm excited. So I think there's a link as well with all this stuff that we have here on the Facebook page. If there isn't, we'll put it. We'll archive this episode too on the website and everywhere else on YouTube, all sorts of stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks for that shout out. I like it because I want people to read it. You write a book, it's a big deal. There's it takes a long time, and then when you actually put it out there into the world, it's you don't want people to come back and be like, nah.
I mean, honestly, it really did speak to me. It made me laugh. I haven't read the book yet, but if it's similar to what I saw on the Netflix special, then goes deeper. It really, what I loved about it, especially now, everyone's alone with their thoughts now.
Yeah.
And they're thinking about all the shoulds in their lives, and that, I should be working out, right? Especially now I've got time, all those things that you beat yourself up over. I don't look, I want to look. Everyone's looking at themselves on Zoom being like, oh God, I've got this. And all the imperfection, like you nailed all of that. And what I love about it is you're like, everyone's messed up looking. Everyone's lives are a mess. It's look around you. Whoever's pretending to be other than that is full of it.
Yeah. Lower your expectations and you'll be a lot happier.
Totally.
All right. So now normally I would let that dough sit for a half hour, but we're just going to keep going with it. And you can do this. This isn't like the auto lease thing came in later and it was like some revelation, and I don't know, but you can totally do it. Sourdough starter. We fed this thing for a whole bunch of time. We did the float test. It's all cool. You take 200 grams of this gooey stuff. Look how gooey that is.
Yeah. Wow.
It literally is like glue. I have never looked it up, but I'm pretty sure this stuff was used as glue centuries ago. It had to be. I mean, you could really, when this stuff gets hard, you can really leave it. You could build a house out of this stuff.
It's probably like wallpaper glue or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. The 200 grams. It is light and airy. You can definitely feel that it's light and ready to bake. If it's too thick, if it hasn't matured enough or it's gone past peak, it just won't. This is your yeast. If you were to not put enough yeast in your dough, it wouldn't rise. And that's the same thing with this. You want it active so it starts to rise and do all its magic. Okay. So I'm just going to add 25 grams of water to this.
Okay.
Because we already put 750. So this is going to be 75% hydrated, 75% water in this. And that's a nice hydration. That's a good number. It makes it nice and light inside, light and airy, and it won't be too dense. A good thing to do though, when you're first starting to bake bread, is to lower the hydration. Don't feel like you gotta achieve all this stuff that you see on Instagram with people with these very porous breads. It's hard to manage. And when you're learning to shape bread and stuff, this is gonna be very sticky. And until you have technique, the more firm it is, the easier it is to handle. So I recommend don't make it too hydrated. Lower it to 70%, lower it to 65%, and you'll be fine. All right, so now we added our yeast to our dough.
Bucket, your enormous bucket.
My enormous bucket, I know.
I'll tell you you're serious. The size of your buckets indicate that you are a serious baker.
Absolutely. I love it. I love all these things. Anytime I get something in the mail that was related to bread, I'd be like, oh, look at this wooden spoon. Everyone's like, what's wrong with you?
I mean, it's amazing that you have. I think it's really important for everybody, honestly, to have a passion and an outlet that isn't related to their job, that they just love to death and can get super nerdy about.
Yeah. And as someone who tours, you're out on the road all the time. To have this hobby that not only, it's very home oriented. I'm only doing this at home.
Right.
I'm feeding the people I'm with when I'm home. When I'm home writing, it fits right into the rhythm of it. Every time I do a stage, I would go and write more. And then when it was time for a break, come and do this, then go back to. So it was like, if I knew that if I was around and had time to bake bread, I was in a good spot, and I was off the road for a bit. I had no idea it was going to turn into a full-time job.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so 2 tablespoons of salt. So now what do we have in here? We have flour, we have water, we have salt, and we have our yeast. Those were the 4 ingredients those are the only ingredients we want in bread, unless you're making olive bread or any of those extra things. Then, so now you just kind of mix it all together. There's a cool technique that a lot of people use called the pincer method, which is take your little claws and pinch the dough along to try and get all this stuff incorporated. Fold it on itself. Just keep mushing it. use your hands, use your pincers, get the salt and the yeast and everything incorporated. Do.
Hey,
play the playlist?
While you're singing, can we talk about music a little bit?
Yeah, was I supposed to play my playlist?
No, because we're gonna put this on YouTube, and then it's a nightmare with publishing and all that stuff. People can find your playlist. So you made a Spotify playlist that people can cook along to, or just listen to and enjoy. And that link is available on our blog on reverb.org, which has your recipe, and we'll have this video there if you're coming in late. And might even have a link right on the post here. I'm gonna look right now to see if anybody is telling me that there is otherwise.
Isn't it funny that everybody in the world now is like part of the AV club?
Exactly.
Everybody now has a technical prowess.
So I want to ask you about some music, because you've had a front row seat to some of the best music around with your another amazing job that you got. I don't know how you definitely figured life out. But your job, with Live From Here, has allowed you to see a lot of incredible live performances. Incredible. I mean, Chris Thile himself, one of the greatest musicians alive.
Same.
Are there any, and I'm not fishing for a compliment here, are there any live performances that stick out in your mind that from your time in that show? Other
than Guster?
Yes.
You guys did kill it, by the way, in a beautiful outdoor venue. Holy cow. And I have to admit, I'd only had, of course, was a fan of you for a long time, but then after you meet somebody, then you really dive in. It was like I was just downloaded everything. And when I was you were my travel companion for the rest of the year from the time I saw you guys. But really,
never mind us.
Yeah. Okay. But I was very lucky to see John Prine.
Nice.
Which was so amazing. I mean, watching him, the cool thing about all of these is that you get to watch warm up. You're on the stage, you're rehearsing, they're rehearsing. Right. And to see everybody go through this stuff, Randy Newman, Paul Simon, and then all these new bands that I didn't really know and then fell in love with, Bedouin, and what was the name? Luscious. And Lucius,
yeah,
and then John Baptiste came on the show. What's his name from the? Why am I spacing on his name? Who does jazz at Lincoln Center? He brought the whole Lincoln Center.
Wynton Marsalis.
Wynton Marsalis. God, yeah. Oh my God! And the New Orleans. What's the main stage?
Yeah, the brass band. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, amazing.
Oh, I mean, so crazy good. But the John Prine moment was really insane. And I was with another comedian, Rory Scovel, who wasn't really aware of John yet. And we're at rehearsal and just sitting in the side, and John just starts playing. And Rory turned to me and said, "How is it that someone that you never heard before can make you cry within 2 notes?"
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing.
I had a great little moment with John Prine. He goes to rehearsal. You'll like this. He goes to rehearsal, and they do the whole thing. And there's a hotel next to. This is in New Orleans, and we go to the hotel. And I didn't meet him. I didn't go up and approach him or anything. I'm in the elevator at the hotel, and he comes in with his manager and some other people, and they don't know him at the show. And he says, the manager says, "Okay, so John, they want you back there at 5." And he said, "Well, when's the show start?" And he said, "The show starts at 6, but they want you there early." He said, "You know what? Let's go at 6 and see what these people look like nervous." It's like right out of a John Prine song.
Very old school.
Oh, like a John Prine song. Okay, so we mix this thing up. It's all incorporated. And then you pull it out of here and put it in your other bucket, your smaller bucket. And you've done it. You've mixed your dough.
Awesome.
You've mixed
Hey, Tom, we've had so much fun talking. We've like almost run the clock out of this thing.
Are we at the end?
Well, we don't have to be, but we should probably get closer. The good news is that you have all these incredible videos already on the step-by-step. We have the recipe. So for people who want to get into the details and really want to try this at home, I think between going to our blog, you can go to reverb.org, or we'll have the recipe. You can click right here on Facebook. You can check out all the stuff. I want to get to your toast.
Okay.
And, I've been having a great time chatting with you. Hopefully people have been enjoying listening. There is a question from Claudia. I wanted to involve some of the folks here. Said, have you ever tried making sourdough waffles?
Oh, have I tried? If you have, so you pulled it all out of there and you've got this sourdough left. We took 200 grams out. You're not making any more bread, but you have enough over there for a cup of sourdough. Ooh, sourdough waffles. You make it the night before, the sourdough and the buttermilk. The big thing for me is the buttermilk, remembering to have buttermilk in the house. And you set that up and then make the next morning, add the other ingredients and make buttermilk sourdough waffles. Woo, big hit, big hit. Awesome. I have teenage kids and they probably would go do other things if it wasn't for the sourdough waffles.
So when I first asked you, hey, what would you like to make? You said toast. And, at that time, I didn't know you were such a huge sourdough bread maker. Right? So I thought you were kidding. Like, oh, my God, we're going to watch Tom Papa make a slice of toast. But and believe it or not, I think it's sardines and cream cheese, right? You make a sardine spread.
Yes.
And then I was like, gosh, I think that can work. So far every recipe so far has been vegetarian. I was like, well, I wonder what the deal is with sardines. Ooh. One of Reverb's partners, Environmental Defense Fund, actually has this whole resource where you can check out how sustainable your fish is. Sardines checks out. They actually have a resource. It's seafood.edf.org. And you can see if you're not sure, hey, is this fish cool to eat or not environmentally?
Yeah.
Sardines do pass the test.
Wow, that's great. I love sardines. My family is Sicilian, and that's a big part of their ingredients is sardines. I mean, at a whole nother level. But again, quarantine hits, and I've got flour, I've got yeast because it's growing in my thing. And guess what's one of the last things on the shelf in the supermarket? Sardines.
Right.
Sardines. People, I don't know why, but people get a little, I get anchovy. It's a very more pungent, it's salty. I can understand people not wanting to get it. I love them. But I understand that. Sardines I don't understand because they're incredibly good for you and they taste great. So what I want to throw together, should I do it? Do we have time?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Yes, I can. So I'm going to skip the toasting part because that's boring and everyone knows how to toast. But you've got your beautiful sourdough bread. Look at that, baby.
Ah, it's gorgeous.
Gorgeous. And this was made yesterday. You take your toast.
Nice.
So simple and so damn good. So good. You just add these ingredients. Life is just about simplicity, right? Simplicity. Take cream cheese and smother it onto your toast. No, you can't see me. Let me go back a little bit like that.
There it is.
There you go. All right. Nice, generous portion of cream cheese. So simple. You've toasted the bread. It's filled up the house. It's got this great aroma. Capers.
Okay.
You put capers on your little cream cheese. Love capers.
Me too.
You know where capers are?
Yeah. Are they flower bud?
Yes.
Yeah.
I learned that. Yeah, look, there's a little flour on it.
Yeah, it's a pickle. I mean, I love everything pickled, so it's like it doesn't matter.
Have you done that? Have you into pickling?
I haven't done that. That's so once I master the sourdough bread, that's the next kind of quarantine thing to do, right?
Yeah, totally. It's the fermenting world. Then you do kombucha, you do pickling, and then you're ready for the COVID-20.
Don't say it out loud. Again, you probably know something we don't. I don't know how you get your information, but
then you take your beautiful sardines and you put those on top. They break up nice. They're very oily, packed in a lot of weird oil. You know, this is very simple stuff. I have this amazing salt that a friend of mine gave me. Are you into salts?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you got there? It's hard to read.
It's from Norway.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Norder salt. It's got a mermaid on it.
All right.
So good. You don't need much of it. Sprinkle a little on top. You can add a little onion. A little red onion is good.
Oh, of course. Now you're kind of talking to my people. I'm Jewish, so this is kind of
right. Exactly.
Hey, I got that nice and close. Let's see what we got there.
All right.
Oh yeah, that looks incredible. I wish I was there to eat it.
Oh my God, it's so good, so good.
Is it weird if I ask you to take a bite of it so I can, like, you know, vicariously taste it for you?
Absolutely. I have not.
It's a little weird. I understand this is a little food porny.
No, I have not eaten today.
And then while you're taking a bite, I'm going to ask you a question with your mouth full, because I got to ask this question. As I was doing research on you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, look at that. That looks great. So while you're chewing, I have a question for you. Where does the Rob Zombie connection come from? That was an out of left field thing for me. I couldn't believe that I don't put Tom Papa and Rob Zombie in the same sentence ever. But
I know a lot of people say that. I don't know. I don't know if it's because I don't look as hardcore as I am. But
no, yeah. What happened? How's that?
He's a very creative dude. He's really creative, super talented, and we became friends through a mutual friend. And he's a big comedy fan.
Okay.
And we ended up being at a wedding together, like a destination wedding where we didn't know anybody.
Right.
Brother. So we bonded. And then we worked on this animated movie together, and we just became friends. And when I came time for me to shoot a stand-up special, it was at a time when Comedy Central was turning out a lot of stuff that all looked the same.
Okay.
And I wanted mine to look more like a film. And I asked Rob if he'd be into doing it, and he jumped on it and just did. So I did 2 in a row with him.
Awesome.
And just amazing eye, works really hard, super creative. Put me in a couple of his movies. He did my stand-up specials. It's been a great friendship.
Amazing. Well, thanks for answering that. And Tom, thanks so much for doing this tonight and spending time with us. Thanks everybody who's paying attention and spending our Thursday together. Let's see. I've got some wrap-up things I need to reference here. So,
good.
Oh, I wish I could have. I'm going to make some of that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the sourdough. So
even if you bake the bread, just get yourself some bread and put this on it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a shortcut too, right? So if you didn't catch all this episode, it'll remain here on Reverb's Facebook page. It'll also be at reverb.org. You can go to YouTube too, reverb.org/YouTube or IGTV. If you make this sourdough bread that you learned from Tom, please post it on the social medias and tag Tom and tag reverb.org. Join us next week with singer, songwriter, rocker, and kitchen goddess KT Tunstall. So that'll be fun.
Nice.
But really, thanks so much, Tom. I really enjoyed getting to know you. I hope we remain in touch and that we get to bond over eating sometime face-to-face again sooner than later.
I can't wait. You had the epic meal of last year. Was with you. Before this year is over, we're going to do it again.
That'd be great. And please, while we have the donate link up, if you are able to donate, we would appreciate it. It helps Reverb. It also helps an organization called City Green that Tom's sister is involved with. Is that right?
That's right. City Green, changing the world through gardening.
Awesome. Urban farming, which is so important, especially now getting food to people who need it. It's great.
Yeah.
So thanks again for everybody who joined us. Please check out Reverb and our quarantine kitchen. We have a number of episodes. You can check it out. Thanks again, Tom. Check out Tom's book. Check out his Netflix special tonight. Go and laugh and feel good. I love you, Tom. I really do.
You're the best.
I could geek out on how big a fan I am of you, but I'll save it.
I'm glad we're friends.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye now.